Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically hockey, and even more specifically, just hockey teams in Canada. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every episode by my lovely and hungover co-host,
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. Universe really fucking threw us under the bus with March 18th on a Saturday, you know what I mean? But Here we are. There's only a few podcasts left in the regular season, so as soon as Mick woke me up with the text message, it's like, we're doing this.
The call. He got the call. I got the conch shell out. I blew it. Woo! Oilers! Bandwagon assemble! And Grant just come running, so... Yeehaw. Yeah.
Here I am. I made it.
I was literally here the entire time.
Did I ever tell you this story? It was not a story per se, so much as something a stand-up comedian said. But she fucking delivers this bit about how her ex-boyfriend used to be the funniest person in the world. And like the setup, there's structure, it's funny. Mm-hmm. And then the punchline is, but she had just never seen Anchorman. It was like, that fucking movie, it delivers. So much so that people have adopted every part of that movie into their regular everyday lives.
Speaking of movies that stand up that are like that, I started watching. It was later than I stay up to. It was maybe after 10 I started the movie. I don't normally do that. I'm lame. I go to bed at that time. I started watching Tommy Boy. I couldn't stop smiling, and I had to watch the whole thing because Chris Farley is hilarious, and the number of things that I'm like, well, that's why I always say brothers gotta hug. I'm like, all right, okay, you know.
Yeah. It's coming together. It's so funny. Last night, drinking with a guy I've never met before, I was like, man, this guy is exactly like Chris Farley. Not funny or delivery-wise, but in terms of stature and lots of cocaine. I was like, oh. Okay.
Cool.
You should be careful, man. I've seen this happen before.
Yeah, this doesn't end well a lot of the time, so, fun. That's good stuff. So, if you're new to the podcast, we are going to run through some headlines, just kind of recap the week that was for some of the Canadian teams. We have some gambling advice, some fantasy advice. We're going to look at boobs. We're going to talk about... Should we be as pessimistic as sports fans? Maybe we'll get onto the top. I mentioned to that last... We have a discussion point, a thought exercise, as it were. I was looking at... I don't know. I hate that sports are so kind of bipolar. We only reward one team. We only reward a group of players. You know, in the NBA, you only get 15 players a year. The NHL, you get maybe 30 guys a year that we reward with this top honors of winning a championship, right? Is the championship the ultimate mark of a successful season, of a successful career? What if we lowered the bar to just on a Stanley Cup Finals appearance, right? Where does that get you in life? What avenues does that open up for Hall of Fame talk, right? Should Stanley Cup Finals appearances count, even if you never won, right? Should the Buffalo Bills 4 Super Bowl appearances and 0 wins in the 90s, should that count for more, right? Or should that fan base feel really bad about themselves?
Well, when it comes to the Bills, I think that they should feel bad about themselves, irrespective of Hall of Fame or success. I think Bills fans are the worst. That being said, I would love to be a part of the shenanigans. You know what? I'm going to say all NFL fans are the worst, actually. Sorry, Bills fans, for singling you out. But all NFL fans are the worst. Because everybody thinks in August their team this is the year. This is a random aside. Soliloquy, as it were. I'm done. This is just something the audience knows now. NFL fans, I hate you.
That is fair. I also feel that any fan base that is happy in the NFL, I kind of hate them. So... I feel, yeah. But courtesy of quanthockey.com, I do have the top 100. I think we just kind of briefly look at the top 100 active scoring leaders in the NHL. And just teams that guys have never made the Stanley Cup Finals, right? If we were going to get into that list, it basically comes down to, as far as I can tell, Erik Karlsson and anyone on a Canadian squad. So right now in the top 10, you have Crosby, Ovechkin, Kane, Malkin, Kopitar, Eric Stahl, Steven Stamkos, Bergeron, Nicholas Backstrom, Claude Giroux. Only outlier there is Claude Giroux. He was in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2010 with the Flyers. do we have to discredit that? And then I guess you get into like the Joe Pavelski. He's never won the Stanley Cup, but I think he's been there at least once, if not twice, with 2 different franchises, right? Phil Kessel, Tavares, Blake Wheeler, and Corey Perry. So when you kind of get to that bottom of that list, that of the top 15, the only 2 guys that haven't been to the Stanley Cup Finals are current captains of Canadian teams, right? So should we feel better or worse about the state of kind of Canadian franchises if we know that there are some... The odds are, if you went through the top 100 list, you end up with not a lot, like 8 guys, 8% of players in the active top 100 scorers haven't made a Stanley Cup final. Should that make us feel that maybe the outlook for Canadian franchises the next decade is strong, that we're going to see the Cup return to Canada? Or are we discrediting those runs that have happened in the past, right? The Flames in 04, the Oilers was at an 07 or 08 or something, right?
06.
When the Canucks made it, the Senators had a brief appearance, right? Like, or should we discredit those as much as we do? Or should we kind of like put on some optimistic, happy, hopeful glasses and say, maybe, we shouldn't be so bad. Like, the Oilers haven't been to the Stanley Cup Finals since 06, but that's a big accomplishment just in itself. And kind of get rid of that 93 banner, right?
I think that we put... So, I think hockey straddles the Hall of Fame better than most sports. Because the MLB, it's a crapshoot. And especially with the steroid era kind of throwing things all out of whack. Some people who have legitimate Hall of Fame careers and were playing the game within the parameters of what was deemed acceptable are not in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. That being said, Roger Clemens, he can go fuck himself. NBA, I think, is on kind of the loose. So they're kind of, I would say MLB is kind of on this hard standard. NBA is kind of on this loose standard. And I would say NHL hockey somewhere in between. But I do think that the parameters for like what we deem acceptable or like Hall of Fame worthy probably should be adjusted. Because team success is such a critical part of like people saying like, oh yeah, if you won the Stanley Cup or you've been part of a Stanley Cup winning team and you've got so many points, it's like, well, it's like an automatic birth type thing. Mm-hmm. But I think that if we shifted it more to like personal accolades, some people would probably look forward to a Hall of Fame call. And like the first name that comes to mind is Carey Price. I know Carey Price is a few years away from it, but like Carey Price belonging in the Hall of Fame to me makes sense. He's done everything, like major accolades, has them all with the exception of a Stanley Cup ring. But, he's done everything. He's been everything. Mm-hmm. In the heart of his, like, beefy part of his career, he was the guy. Why not, like, and maybe it's a question I'd pose to you. Do you think Carey Price is a Hall of Famer?
I'm personally going through kind of an adjustment period myself and kind of adjusting my kind of criteria and how harsh I've been on some players in the past, right, that they never won the Stanley Cup. And I might move it back to the teams that have made the Stanley Cup, like those appearances, right, and just look at the Canadian teams in the past that have done it, right. The Sedins, the Vancouver Canucks franchise has been a wet fart their entire existence, outside of maybe a couple years of Pavel Bure and then the existence of the Sedins, right? They kind of defined that franchise. They took them to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, they lost, but I mean, I don't think you should discredit what them and Luongo meant to that team, to that franchise, to the organization, to those players' careers, right? What the effect of like Jerome McGinley had on the Calgary Flames, right? And how that guy was just kind of like a stalwart of that team, right? So I think I'm personally thinking like, yeah, Carey Price is one of the greatest of all time. He almost got to the big show, right? They obviously didn't make it. They didn't win, but those are also extenuating circumstances. But I mean, the fact that he carried that team through 3 rounds, right, against fairly decent competition, right, during the COVID year, absolutely. I think we should accredit guys that made it to the show, right, and not just exclude them because like, they lost one game. They lost one game in their career, so they shouldn't make the Hall of Fame. That seems narrow-minded. So And as a fun thought experiment, it gives you a lot of hope, especially as we're looking at the names and you see the McDavid at 21 overall and the Draisaitl at 30th overall. They're definitely the outliers on that list of teams that haven't made the Stanley Cup Finals. So as long as those guys continue to play, right, continue to be a presence for that offense in the Oilers, it's bound to happen. It may not happen consistently, right? Like it's going to be probably closer to maybe like an Ovechkin scenario, where one time in 18 years they might make it, and you're like, that seems like a lot. That's hockey, that's sports, right? It's kind of a long waiting period for those little glimpses of excellence, but it's more of a, I don't know, I would be more optimistic.
All right, so I'm doing a random crossover here, but talking about Ovechkin making the Stanley Cup Final, winning the Stanley Cup Final, back in 2018, whatever it was, do you think that would keep a player like a potential player, Hall of Famer like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl with the franchise? Because all three of those players are free agents in the near or coming future. Do they need to make an appearance for those players to stick with their respective franchises? Is that what's going to keep people there?
See, I don't know if that's the litmus test. I know hockey players are built a little differently. Like they kind of they get settled in their situations. They're kind of more comfortable, right? Depending lucrative what happens. I don't know if it makes more sense for McDavid to go play somewhere else, right? Like his brand as the Oilers captain, as like this all-time great, alongside, playing in the shadow of Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, that doesn't have the accolades. He doesn't have the trophies to kind of back, or the team trophies to back it up. He has lots of individual trophies. Like, legacy-wise, I don't know if I'd run away from that, right? And knowing that the team that wins the cup right now, as a Canadian team, you're going down as one of the most like, they might build a giant statue of you in the middle of Canada, right? And people go and worship you and pray to you, kind of thing. So the godlike status that could be achieved by one of those teams hitting success, I don't know, that's pretty tempting. Where else are you getting that? Do you think if Connor McDavid sits down with Stamkos, he's like, man, Tampa must love you, right? Those guys, whew, you got 2 cups for them? They must absolutely love that. And he's like, I go to the supermarket and no one knows who I am. Right? I've seen guys, I've been in 7-Eleven and there's hey man, is that Jimmy Butler? And they'll chase after some random, black guy in the store. And you're like, kids, no, I'm actually Steven Stamkos. And I'm like, I don't fucking care about you at all. I don't know. I think if you don't like those things, if you like to be anonymous and you don't want the fame, the glory, the honor, sure, go play in Phoenix.
Yeah, well, maybe that's if anything, that could be foreshadowing Austin Matthews' future. But I would say this. I know Connor McDavid spent a lot of money on his house, and I guarantee you, unless he's selling it to a teammate, nobody has the money to afford his residence in Edmonton. Nobody. Not in this economy. So that's the one thing that's keeping me sane with Connor McDavid. Is guess what? He's not selling his house. He ain't going nowhere. Connor McDavid, Oiler for life.
There you go. And I mean, you want to talk about that? The Leafs, Noel Akari, they call him Cookies because he likes cookies, and he got a dealer. He's got a commercial deal right now with Tim Hortons selling cookies. So that's a hell of a sponsorship, right? Tim Hortons is a very, very big company. So to have Tim Hortons sponsoring you, even for a stupid cookie commercial, that's huge, right? What other market in the world are hockey players getting that kind of action, right? Do you think Starbucks is giving any of the Kraken money? Because I don't think that's happening, man.
You're telling me Noel Acciari has a sponsorship deal, but you and I don't. We've been doing this shit way longer than he has. Yeah,
it's because we're not a Toronto Maple Leaf. You see, that's what I mean. It's the sweater those boys wear that kind of push them over the limit. So,
all right. Well, advice heeded. I'm gonna show up with all the right gear next week. And for our loyal listeners who kind of pick up on the Wayne's World homages, I promise you this will be something special.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm just like, how refreshing. I really can now unleash the beast. All right, let's get into it. So headline. So that was my random thought experiment. Did it go anywhere? I don't know. Maybe. I was just trying to make me and Grant feel better, so.
But, well, we did talk about the housing market in Edmonton, so maybe we piqued some interest.
Cool. There you go. So, usually what we do is go to the bottom of the standings, work our way up. We get the Montreal Canadiens, the defenseless Montreal Canadiens, at 28th from the bottom. They're the fifth worst team. What's going on with Montreal this week? I know they had it was like 9-5 the other night, midway through the second period against Florida. No defense needed.
It feels like they came back, though. Like, I want to say it was like 7-1 at one point, and they made it 9-5.
That's what I mean. Like 9 goals against is terrible, but like 5 goals for? That's not awful. Like, it's not good. Like, 9-5 is just a disgusting score. Like, that game must have just been greasy.
I can't even imagine. So, and it wasn't like, other than following along online, I didn't have any money on it. But as soon as I saw the score and get up to what it was, I was like, well, I got to see how this ends. Other than that, I hadn't paid much attention to the Habs this week, except for the fact that I heard players rave about Martin St. Louis' coaching abilities, which kind of stuck out to me as like, Montreal has this unique dynamic where you need to be French-speaking, in a sense, to address media, have conversations. But apparently, Martin St. Louis also has like a brilliant hockey mind. And truthfully, we've seen the Habs be as bad as they have been under different coaches over the last few years. And considering what he has to work with, I would say St. Louis is doing a bang-up job. But it kind of made me a little optimistic for Montreal because I don't think that there's a coach. Like, there's not a coach in the NHL where I'm like, this guy is a difference maker. Like, kind of like the Bill Belichick of the NFL, where it's like, this guy's acumen just gives his team an advantage every time they're on the ice. Like, I don't think a coach like that exists. It's more like a carousel. Like, you plug and replace. Like,
I don't know. John Cooper's been doing some nice work in Tampa Bay for like a decade now. So,
okay, John Cooper, I will concede that. But anyways, where I was going with this was like, I think Martin St. Louis has a great opportunity to become like the coach, like the person where like whatever door wants to be open, like it will be open for him. Obviously, like there are a few wins away from him achieving that success, but I think they're off to a good start.
I mean, if they can keep kind of just the point or the ship pointed in the right direction, they don't fall off the tracks. We've talked about that last show, just with all the draft capital that was moved out between the Floridas and the Tampa Bays and the Bostons and the Torontos moving forward. There's going to be a big void in that division, assuming that they don't change things, right? For the teams like that to kind of grow in the next couple of years, right? Like, yeah, it's probably going to be a hard next 2 years for this franchise, right? But like in that third year, you should see an upward trajectory when everyone else is kind of crashing, right? To be able to take advantage of those things. So it is just a wait and see approach in Montreal. That's kind of it. And lots of goals, lots of overs.
Take the overs, yeah.
All right. Vancouver, 25th from the top. I feel like Vancouver, nothing. I don't know. Did they play hockey this week? Couldn't tell you.
So I think they had one notable win. I'm just cycling through here. Vancouver team, nope, they lost to the Coyotes. I could have swore the last time out. I could have swore they had one marquee win. Oh, they beat the Stars.
Okay,
that's what it was. 5-2. That's all I got to say about that.
Lost Arizona. Well, I guess that makes sense because you could be 26th instead of 25th because they're currently tied with Arizona. So just come on, Arizona, keep winning. Why is Arizona winning games at this point? But I mean, I asked that about any bottom team. Like realistically, why are you winning games if you're the Chicago Blackhawks at this point?
You know what's funny? People, like, with the water shortage, playing in a college arena, Gary Bettman continues to defend to death the Arizona Coyotes' right to play in the desert. It makes no fucking sense to me. None.
Well, they had the general manager's meeting, and they said, we did not discuss because there's no pressing matters. I think the game's in a good spot. We're not changing the playoff format, even though those fans are clamoring for it. Why would we give the fans anything you want? A month and a half ago, I defended Gary Bettman with his comments that NHL teams or NHL players and coaches don't tank. It's not in hockey players' DNA, right? These guys are prideful guys. They go out there. They want to win games, right? I agree with that. I agree with Gary Bettman. And then he comes out like this and just is such a fucking piece of shit. And I'm like, Gary, well, like, it's very well known that the playoff format doesn't work. People are frustrated with it. Why do you have a team playing in a 3,000? Like, it's a joke. Absolute joke. Like, and I mean, I realize that he makes the league money, but like, you're not growing the sport like you could. You could make a lot more. Look how much football makes. Look how much like hockey. Look how much basketball makes, right? Like, why don't you have higher standards, being like, hey, we're better than MLS?
But they're getting a little close. They're nipping at our heels.
Well, better be careful. Wayne Rooney?
I'm so glad we opened this can of worms because I would like an opportunity to shit on Gary Bettman because I saw the same thing this week where it was like, yeah, we would never go back to the 1 versus 8 format. Like, why? Why the fuck would you not? Like, just look at the Atlantic Division. Just look at it. One of the 5 best teams in the NHL will always be out in the first round. And only one of the top 5 teams is going to make it past the second round. Like, it makes 0 sense. And this fucking little Weasley man is like, all right, this works. People like it. Gary Bettman, bitch, no. We don't like this. Nobody likes it. All you have to do is just say, here, just entertain the thought, man. Mm-hmm. And I will promise you this, like, the first person that comes in, the first order of business, and that is the first person that comes in after Gary Bettman. Yeah. First order of business will be, all right, we're scrapping the current playoff format. We're going back to 1 versus 8.
Like, at this point, I understand as a traditionalist, but, like, make it interesting. In the world of social media and your TikToks, like, you need to get kids into the game, right? Like, you need to make younger fans is really kind of what you should be doing. I don't know if the NHL is doing a very good job with that. I don't know if kids are sold on the game as much, right? But, like, make it frisky. What if you even do, like, a 1 through 16 or a draft? You're the first overall seed. You pick of the top 16 teams. Who do you want to play in the first round? Make it personal, and then you move down, right? If the second team's still off the board, who do you want to play, right? Make it frisky. Make it, and then when you lose as a 16 seed upsets a 1 seed, that's a big story, right? Think of college basketball. That just happened yesterday, and everyone loses their mind, and that's all people want to talk about. That is how you, like, make ripples and you become this big thing. Like, oh, do you see what hockey's doing? Oh man, we had another 1 seed lose to a 16 seed second year in a row. Like, they have to be careful. Like, the pressure and the intrigue that just builds and the storylines that people can then talk about. Because you know what people don't like talking about in basketball? Basketball. They like the storylines. They like talking about, like, oh, did you see what Swaggy P posted on his Insta yesterday? Oh, did you see, like, the TikTok that Antonio Brown released? Those are the things people like talking about. So, like, create those narratives with your structure. Because hockey players are kind of boring. They're not going to give you that content, right? Unless you like cute videos of guys shaking kids' hands. I don't know. You got to do something. So,
random aside. Last thing. This has been 2 things. 1, our most productive Vancouver Canucks segment.
I'm having a great time. Vancouver is doing well today.
2, basketball has some of the most, like, sexual, not even just, like, I would say homosexual terms. Like, everybody talks about banging inside and, like, length and look how he uses his girth. Like, if you ever paid attention to basketball commentary, I would say that, like, 90% of the inappropriate sports comments probably come from basketball.
He shot it right in his face.
Yeah. And, like, honestly, we've heard that before. I guarantee you that has come up.
All right. Well, with that, 5 minutes ago, I scrolled up to the Ottawa Senators, who are 22nd from the top here. Ottawa, what happened? Remember we were making last week, they're like, man, they're making the playoffs. Go Ottawa. Did they just not win any hockey games this week? Or
okay, I didn't do a deep dive on Ottawa. They are, I think, 6 points out of a playoff spot.
They're on a 4-game losing streak, so cool.
Well, that's the Canada puck shine for you. But you want to know what their schedule consists of? It is fucking absurd. So they have a game against Columbus, and they have a game against, I want to say Anaheim, something like that. And the rest, every other one of their matchups is a legitimate playoff contender, legitimate playoff team, or a playoff contender like the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
I should have thought about this before I opened my big yapper last week, because My fuck. You know what? I'm just going to pull it up. I'm going to read you what they have to go through because I looked into this last night. I was like, this makes no sense. How did they save the worst opponents for the end of the season? Because Ottawa, here we were tooting their horns, talking about them as a potential playoff team. We should have looked at the end of the schedule. Listen to this. Maple Leafs, Penguins, Bruins, Lightning, Devils, Panthers, Flyers. Flyers was the other team maybe. Maple Leafs, Blue Jackets, Hurricanes, Panthers, Lightning, Hurricanes, Sabres. Like, there is not an off night with the exception of the Columbus Blue Jackets, like, and maybe the Philadelphia Flyers. This team's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, sorry, Ottawa. You tried you tried so hard and got so far, but you know what? In the end, it didn't even matter because you had Mad Sogard in net, and he doesn't know how to stop a puck apparently, or like freeze a puck. So.
But they're in Toronto tonight. Maybe we'll talk about this. They're in Toronto tonight. I'm actually looking forward to that game. I don't invest a lot of time watching the Ottawa Senators, but I'm carving out time to see what they do against the Leafs.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, they had a pretty good showing against the Avalanche, right? And the Avalanche run train. They kicked Montreal's ass. They beat Toronto in overtime the other night, and then a 5-4 affair. And again, Mad Sogard, I think he stopped the puck. It was on an icing or something, and he goes to stop the puck, but the whistle doesn't go, and then he lets it go. A Colorado Avalanche comes up, a player comes, shoots it in the net, they lose the game on that play. It seems suspect a little bit. So, I mean, when that's the deciding factor of the game, it's not terrible, but that is a gross schedule. I did pull it up on the screen here, so anyone on YouTube, you followed along, and poor little Ottawa. Where are the Calgary Flames? They're probably somewhere, too. Hey, Calgary Flames, they're 17th. Not on the top half of the league. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job, Canada. Flames. Weird that they were favored against Vegas the other night. I thought, man, that seems like a weird line. I'm definitely putting money on an underdog Vegas team because the Flames suck. Well, 8-3 later. Apparently the Flames are awesome and Vegas sucks.
I thought the same thing as you for a brief moment. I shit you not, I was betting on Sports Select that day. I filled out the form. I was like, Vegas is underdogs at home? Yep. I literally checked it off, filled it all out, I got like 2 steps away from the counter. I was like, this feels like a trap. So I turned around, I went back, and I filled out my score sheet differently. I put the Flames on there, I ended up winning some money, so that kind of felt good. But this team remains one of the top analytics teams in the league. They continue to just underperform. And it's like, I fucking hate saying this again. Players are a function of their environment, and the trades just didn't work for Calgary this year. They've replaced the players, kept the system the same, and the outcome is this team is just not as good.
When has a trade ever worked out for Calgary?
Oh, that's a good question.
So I'm thinking, I'm looking back. I was looking at some drafts earlier for some. I like to go back periodically, right? And there's the year where they traded. It was 2 first-round picks for Travis Hamonic, and then they ended up picking. I think the Islanders ended up getting Noah Dobson at 11th overall the one year, and I was like, I feel like Noah Dobson is just better than Travis Hamonic. So the fact that anything else was included, and I was like, have the Flames ever won a trade? Maybe Lucic for James Neal?
That was the one thing that came to mind. I was like, I think they beat us. I think they beat the Oilers in the Lucic trade.
But even then, I just wouldn't want Lucic on my team. So, it's kind of a win, right?
You know what? We've never once bumped into Milan Lucic in the city. At least I don't think you have. If you have, is that a man that you would throw fists with? Do you think that if, leaving the bar a few beers later, you'd be like, hey, Milan, we got something to sort out, you and I
imagine, when you get punched and it, it's like that thud and it just hurts and it's black. I imagine that's what each of his punches feels like. It's not like one of those ones you're like, oh, that was a graze. It's like a thud and you're like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. I kind of just feel like that's, or even hitting him, that's what would happen. You'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to be here anymore. So, no, I feel like Lucic is just, not a good hockey player, but definitely, bar rapscallion. Can't do better than that.
So you're saying we should make friends with Milan then? Milan, friend of the show. Guess what? We're in Calgary. Let us know if you want to go for beer.
The only player in Flames history to have been on the winning side of a trade, Milan Lucic.
Boop, boop. And that's where the winning is stopped for him.
Pretty much. That's too bad. It's not like Matthew Tkachuk is like the 4th leading point scorer in the league. So. Huh. Like even like Dougie Hamilton is kind of better than both Lindholm and like Noah Hannafin.
Dougie Hamilton's like, yeah.
Right? Like that trade, you're like, the Flames kind of won that deal, but like they just don't do anything. Like Elias Lindholm's really good if you give him the perfect pass on that one spot of the ice that he likes. Other than that, he's kind of not that. He's barely sucks.
I forgot about the Dougie Hamilton days, to be honest. It just feels like Calgary just fucking never stops tinkering, hey? Like, it's just like this constant churn of this guy or that guy or this guy or that guy, and it just never works out. Even their coach, they fucking brought back the same coach because he had unfinished business. How's that working out, Calgary? Like, none of this is working. None of it.
Yeah. And, like, the trades they could have made, the first-round pick they were going to give up for Fleury. But Fleury's too much money. What? It was like $7 million. You're paying your new goalie $6 million. So for another $1 million, you wouldn't want a guy who, like, almost went to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yep. Stanley Cup winning goaltender. On the Fleury note, did you see how he tried to fight Binnington earlier in the week?
Yeah, Binnington seems like he's kind of a... I don't know. Seems like a guy trying to keep his spot on the ice there or something, right? Like, he's had a couple spastic moments because, like, he knows he's not worth what he's getting paid.
He gets butthurt over the smallest fucking inconveniences.
Mm-hmm.
Binnington, and, like, I respect loose cannon goalies. Dwayne Rollison, he was at his best in the 90s and aughts when he was fucking angry. Mike Smith, same thing. Ron Hextall. There's goalies where, like, you wanted them to be agitated to be at their best. Binnington gets angry and he sucks. Like, he is the biggest piece of shit in the world. Mm-hmm. He gets all bent out of shape every time everything doesn't go his way. And he's like, oh, I wanted so badly for Marc-Andre Fleury to punch him in his teeth. So badly. And the linesman did us all a disservice. So fuck these new guys. Just let them go.
So St. Louis calls Edmonton this summer. They say, hey, we got this loose cannon of a goalie. We know you have a history of turning these guys into fan favorites. Jack Campbell, soup, straight up for Binghamton. Stanley Cup goalie. Let's do it. Let's get it done. We'll even retain that extra, whatever, $1 million of his salary. Straight up swap. You in?
100% I am. I want Soup to... I kind of like the guy. He seems like a nice person. You kind of hope for him to have success. It's not working in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And if we could weasel out of that contract, by any means necessary, yes.
There we go. So, breaking deals here on the Canada Puck Podcast. Up to the top half of the league. And a team that's falling. I don't know if they're out of jet fuel. I don't know if the air pressures just got to them, if there's some navigational issues. But the Winnipeg Jets are slowly coming back down to earth. We talked last show. Who's more likely to make the playoffs? Jets, Flames. Whew. Easy peasy should be the Jets. They're going to keep it close here. They're going to keep it really, really damn close, Winnipeg Jets.
I don't know what's going wrong. They outplayed their metrics early on in the season, and they're paying for it now, is the only thing that I can think of. Again, I don't watch a whole bunch of Jets hockey to be able to comment on, like, well, this is exactly what's happening. However, I will say this. This afternoon's matchup against the Nashville Predators, I'm not an absolute type of person, but it is a make or break point in their schedule where it's like, whatever happens this afternoon, because it's going to be a 4-point swing, potentially, where, you know, a team wins in regulation and the other team loses. So not only if the Jets lose, they're not going up by more than 2 points, they're actually going down by 2 points, kind of like the Jeopardy.
Yeah.
When they take away money later, like it's going to be a big swing if the Jets lose tonight. Yeah,
and I've kind of heard at this point. They had some success against Florida last week. They went Hellebuck back to back, beat the Panthers, beat the Lightning. I think Hellebuck, it's kind of make or break time, buddy. Like, you don't get a night off. The rest of the schedule's on you. You've got 13 games to get these guys in shape, get them into the postseason. I think the weight's on his shoulder, right? His best goalie in the world. Is he going to step up? Or is the team going to help him, right? That's going to be one of those two options, so...
Connor Hellebuck, God bless his little heart. He's trying his best, but I honestly think that the team in front of him has let him down.
All right, so this summer, Winnipeg Jets, shovel day off, calls up Edmonton, like, hey, we got this goalie, Hellebuck, we'll trade you straight up for Soup. You taking it?
Oh, God. I would throw in, yes,
Okay,
100 times yes. Man.
See? Soup just goes for anything. Grant will throw him for scraps. Bingington, Hellebuck, doesn't even matter.
Yeah, none of it matters. But I was going to mention this. Connor Hellebuck deserves more Vezina trophies than he has for what he's done over the last few years.
Yeah.
But especially with the Vezina trophy, it feels like lightning in a bottle more than actual talent. Like, it's like, who has a great year as opposed to who's had the best career. And Connor Hellebuck, for his time in the NHL, has easily had the best career. That guy's a fucking difference maker.
There you go. So we're going to scroll up a little bit. I'm guessing, Edmonton at 12. Come on, guys. What happened? I swear we used to have, like, more teams in the top league. Edmonton this week, what did they do? They played pretty close to what I was going to call game of the year last week. Friday or Saturday night, 5 o'clock. You could have watched the Oilers, the Leafs. Man, those guys were flying. There was some dynamic. Edmonton just couldn't come back at the end there. Other than that, it looks like they've got 2 wins since. I think they probably beat Montreal and somebody.
Dallas and Ottawa.
Okay, awesome. So there you go. So with that, Edmonton just kind of creeping on.
I mentioned this last week or the week before. Like, Edmonton's schedule is an advantage for them towards the end of the season.
Okay.
They're still in the conference conversation, albeit they're falling. That loss last week, they lost a little bit of ground because the Kings, for some reason, continue to win. But with 2 games against LA coming up on the horizon and 2 games against the Knights, one of which it's actually next week, next Saturday, this is their momentum building phase. Like, whatever it is that happens over the next few weeks is going to determine, I think, how successful they are in the playoffs, because if they can get it to the front of the division, front of the pack, much more favorable matchup. But if they don't get there, then they're basically going to be stuck playing one of the teams that they continue to lose against. And I'm not going to say their playoff destiny is already etched in stone, but it's going to be harder for them to be successful. So this week, who did they play today? Kraken. It's Kraken today, and then it's like San Jose Coyotes, San Jose, and then Arizona. This is a potential move, and then with Vegas on that next Saturday. By this time next week, we could be talking about the Oilers playing their way into a division lead against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Excellent. So that's good. That outlook, right above Seattle, sitting 13th in the standings right now. They got a game in hand. So big game tonight, right? You lose to that. Seattle, they get that extra chess piece on the board, but Edmonton, you can kind of start pounding that nail into that coffin if you kind of get some wins under your belt here. And big news, Leon Draisaitl did it. He got to 100 points on the season, and he got to 0. He's no longer a -2 on the season, everyone. He's now a 0. So congratulations, Leon Draisaitl, to not be a complete detriment defensively.
Quick question. I don't know if you know the answer. Do you know the last time? I was thinking about this earlier in the week. Didn't look into it. Maybe it's been mentioned on TV. When is the last time one team had 250 goal scorers? I don't want to jinx anything. But when's the last time it happened?
Like maybe, I don't know.
90s Penguins, Lemieux, Yager, potentially.
Yeah. Did Crosby and Malkin ever have kind of 2 career years? I know they kind of they jumped up and down, right? Like one would get 100 points, the other would be hurt or something. I don't know if they ever had one season where they both kind of went Omega level, but
I think Crosby only had 150 goal season. And I think it was early in his career. That's a good point. Maybe it was them. But anyways, McDavid and Draisaitl are just on another level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. So keep scrolling up, and somewhere Toronto will pop up. Oh, look at that, fourth from the top, right up there with all the big guys. Beat Carolina last night handedly, apparently. Morgan Riley back. Everyone was kind of down and out. He was done Shouldn't have spent so much money on him. How dare you give a top defenseman $7 million? Disgusting. He's had a big week. He almost scored twice against Colorado, scored a couple times, at least once against Carolina last night. They're probably going to lose to Ottawa because that's just what the Leafs do. They lose on Saturday nights. Don't lose your mind. Leafs fans are the worst. Anything else? Did you watch the Edmonton game last week?
I caught most of it.
So somewhere around, I was also busy. I was just busy last Saturday. I was like going. I meant to stop. I was like middle of like a workout, had the game on, and then like, you know, like you do these other things. And finally, it was halfway through the game when I sat down. The Oilers were up a couple goals at that point. Something clicked, and Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Tavares started playing at this different level that I haven't seen for a while. I think it started with the Mitch Marner takeaway right in front of the Oilers net that kind of like started the guys going. When they start clicking and that offense is running on all cylinders, that's a scary team, man. That's a really, really scary group of guys, knowing that not everyone is there. Luke Shen has just now joined the team after the birth of his child, and O'Reilly's got a finger injury, so he's out for about another 12 days. Like, I don't know what do you say? Like, at this point, Leafs Nation, just kind of hold your breath to the playoffs, because you get 7 games-ish. You get 4 losses, really. Four losses in a series to kind of decide your destiny, because this is a damn good squad, right?
It is great, and I was just tuning in kind of intermittently last night, out drinking, you know what I mean? Mm. But it astounded me how every time I looked at the TV, I was like, the Leafs are just absolutely dominating this game. I don't know what's going to happen, and maybe this is the universe, maybe it's me just misreading the fucking universe's signs, but it feels like the Leafs are trending upwards, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are trending downwards, and it's going to be this, like, awesome playoff series where everybody goes into it where the Leafs are so much better than the Lightning. This is our year. Toronto's the best. Tampa Bay sucks. And then they're going to lose in like 4 or 5 games. Like, it just feels like it's a fucking classic letdown spot the way that things are going. And that's fucking rich coming from an Oilers fan. I feels like something's askew. Maybe it's just me being a glass half empty type of person. From the outside looking in, it just feels like the Maple Leafs are bound for disappointment. Things are going too well right now for us to be like, this is the team, this is the year. I just feel like my heart's going to get broken because sadly, I actually kind of want Toronto to do well because I like Kyle Dubas and I want him to keep his job.
Well, but like, with just like the narrative, I'm just so curious, right? Because they beat Tampa Bay, sure, great. They go to Game 7 in the second round against Boston and lose. Okay, that's the outcome I can guarantee happens, right? Like right there. Well, then what's the narrative on that? Was that a successful season? Does Dubas get his job? Is it just like a flaw in the current system? Like he's had this amazing hand, but between the pandemic and like the flat cap and the stupid playoff format, his team just can't overcome these obstacles, right? Like it's just too much in really what boils down to a very luck-based game, luck-based system, and it's just going to be kind of one of those, they'll never like the league basically needs to change for them to overcome it. I don't know. Or is that a success? Like does winning that game that series against Tampa Bay all of a sudden make them perpetual winners? And now they can do no wrong and sign everyone to max $14 million deals. We'll figure it out later because like this is it. This is the best shot. I don't know. We'll see. There's no clear-cut answers. I kind of feel like people are just going to shit on Toronto independent of results. Like, even if they win the Stanley Cup, like, it was a soft Stanley Cup to win, of course, like they're not winning. Like, I don't know what, like, Leafs fans expect from everyone. Like, you're going to get shit on independent of results, right? They could go 16-0 in the postseason, and everyone would be like, fluke. Like,
yeah, you beat the Oilers, man. Get over yourself.
Yeah, come on. Like, they're, like, Soup was like barely a goalie at this point. Like Jordan Binghamton, they'd rather have, right? Like I even heard a guy that said on a podcast he would trade for Kyle Hellebuck. That's how shitty he is. Like, all right, good times.
I wonder. A random thought experiment, just to build off of your momentum from earlier in the show. What do you think do you think that we would see multiple goalie trades? And like with the Soup trade, do you think we could trade Campbell for Binnington and then Binnington for Hellebuck? Do you think we could do that swap? Do you think anybody in the right mind would actually, knowing what Shelvadeoff does and that he doesn't like trading anybody, how would we pry away Hellebuck? Would it take Binnington?
So, like, you think for some reason, in like, Ken Holland's mind, Binghamton's a better deal. Like, maybe if you threw in, like, Ekholm and, like, Binghamton, you could then go get Hellebuck. Because, like, look at this big defensive anchor you're now getting. Like, this is a big deal, guys. We know Hellebuck can play without, like, a team with, like, pretty flimsy defense. That's kind of what Oilers' bread and butter right now is flimsy defense, so.
Yeah. You know what? I like where this is going.
Right.
We need to be GMs. I will say that. I'll say it again. We need to be GMs.
That's it. A little bit of ball. Normally we make fun of NHL.com and their fantasy advice, but they did not have it posted anywhere. I don't know if that's just a thing they stopped. We'll see if the trend continues next week. Last week they went 0 for 2. They said that Alex Lafreniere, if you had to pick a goal, man, you should look at the Rangers and definitely not pick Patrick Kane or Panarin. Stupid. Clayton Keller for assists. He had a goal, so that does not count. Pavel Buchnevich got a goal, so that's a point, I suppose. And then Victor Arvidsson with 4 shots on goal. Flimsy advice at best, NHL.com. That's why I'm going to close you and move on. Well, actually, I'm not going to close you. I'm going to go to FanDuel, and we can talk about our kick-ass lineups, how we almost dominated, how we rule. We're better than NHL.com, which isn't hard. I don't know why I'm setting the bar so low for us. Grant, how did you do?
I gotta switch screens here. I don't think very good. I think I think I did shit. I definitely lost money, and by that, my dollar didn't pan out. Damn. Let me just see here. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, wrong screen. 80.2 points, and I finished 621st out of 714. So whatever momentum I had at the beginning of the year has clearly evaporated.
It's gone. It gone.
She gone.
All right.
How did you do?
I almost 10x'd my money. I almost won my entry. I was off by 16 points. And when you look at my lineup, guys, I knew St. Louis was going to beat Columbus. But you know what I did not know? That Jordan Binghamton, speaking of the man himself, was not going to be playing in net. So I made an error. I did not check my goalie before 5 o'clock. And I lost by 16 points. I would have had a winner. Connor McDavid, 33 points. Mark Scheifele, 30 points. Mitch Marner, poof. When I called him the best player on the Leaf, 48.2 points. I don't think I was that far. Seth Jarvis, 0. It didn't even matter. Rasmus Sandin put up another 30 spot. And then Jake McCabe, Byfield, and Philip Di Giuseppe each had 3.2 points. Kind of cute, actually. Look at that running down the board. So basically, I just hit 4 of the bigger, like the leaders last week, and did it right for myself. So that's gonna be my strategy this week: is just go high end, guys. Don't worry about the back end stuff so much, because you can almost win one of these pools without a goalie.
Yeah, you almost could. McDavid and Bjorkstrand accounted for 54 of my 80.2 points, so everybody else sucked. We can leave it at that.
There you go. I apparently this week actually went with a goalie, so that's weird. Normally my strategy is I look at the projected goalies, nothing on the score. Looked at projected goalies, they had like Mads Sogaard and Matt Murray for the Toronto game. Everything else is unsure at this point, so I did a little bit of a different strategy. Grant, what does your lineup look like this week?
This might be a little misguided considering my outcomes over the last few contests, but I kind of like what I've got on the list here. I went with I kind of went with kind of a stackish. I would say with a Leafs, sadly Canucks stack, but I do believe in the Canucks tonight. So this is what I got. Starting in the back end, Thatcher Demko, 6,800. The Kings have. It just feels like they're going to fall flat on their face one of these days. So I went Thatcher Demko with Anthony Beauvillier and Connor Garland in my utility spots. With regards to my forwards and kind of like pseudo Leafs or like my complimentary Leafs players, William Nylander, Morgan Riley. But I think that that's going to be a high-scoring affair, so I also included Drake Batherson and Artem Zub from the Senators. I think that goals are going to be aplenty, and that leaves me with 2 center spots, Thomas Hurdle, Braden Point, Montreal playing in Tampa. That game's going to end terribly. And Islanders are on an extended Western Conference road trip. Thomas Hurdle, basically the only person left on the San Jose Sharks who can do anything. 6,200 felt a little undervalued for me.
Cool, great. Well, I don't know if it's just maybe the lack of hockey games. Like, is that the case? Is there just like not a lot of hockey games this evening? Because it does seem like the pool. Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6. So fewer than most. Usually we have like a couple extra ones. Hence, I was gonna say we have lots of the same picks. I went with a kind of Senators. I picked basically all the same players you did. Tim Stützle up front. He's got something like 87 points in his last 82 games, maybe like 97 points. The guy looks like he's playing well. I'm going to pair him with Brady Tkachuk on the wing at 8,600 and 8,000 respectively. Thomas Hurdle at center, $6,200. I agree with Grant. It sounds like great value there. Mitch Marner, he's the best Maple Leaf right now. $8,100. He was the leader last week. I could see him going off against Ottawa last night. He seems like he's got a bit more gas in his tanks. He's having a lot of fun. He's playing a different level of hockey. Like when you watch him, he's kind of, I don't know, he's having fun. He's smiling. He's rolling his eyes at certain plays. Like he's seeing the game at all different level. I think he's worth that investment. I also have Timothy Lindgren. I need a cheap defenseman. The Leafs, for some reason, those guys, him, McCabe, they kind of always stand out. They're kind of dark horses for a goal. Troy Stetcher, I'm hoping that his passing kind of maybe gets him an assist when Dallas is in Calgary tonight, $3,800. Nick Paul and Nick Ritchie at $41 and $3,600 on utility. Names I recognized at the bottom of the sheets. And then Brian Elliott. I actually spent money at $8,600. I have the most expensive goalie. Tampa Bay is in Montreal, or is hosting Montreal tonight, so let's go Brian Elliott. Also one of the goalies obviously projected, because why wouldn't I put Vasilevsky in? So when Vasilevsky starts tonight and I end up like 28th and not making any money because I didn't change my goalie, well, it's your fault, listeners. You should call me and tell me.
I'm going to call and tell you just so you know.
Yeah, perfect. So that's how I'm rolling right now. Recognizable names. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to go with some guy named Tage Thompson that no one's ever heard of before, and he goes off for like 60 points, and you're like, oh, cool, I won like $5.
Yeah, I'll never forget. You called that before the rest of the league caught on. Mick, Trailblazer, if there was ever any doubt, when he has a good feeling about things, listen to this man, because guess what? He's on to something.
Yeah, I don't fucking listen to myself. Someone should. Speaking of not listening to myself, now you know what our FanDuel lineup is. Sometimes called My Dirty Fantasy. Sometimes we go to Bettor Advice, where we give you gambling advice. The game that we play is we put 100 theoretical dollars on the line every single week. Keep tabs on the results. See how we do by the end of the season. We were both doing fairly well. I know I bummed out last week because I had a winning ticket, but I didn't play it. I said, you know what? Oilers are winning unless they're winning or the Leafs are beating them by multiple goals. And I could have hedged my bets, taken the Oilers. They were like plus 100. And the Leafs minus 1.5 goals was like plus 200. I could have put $50, guaranteed at least my 100 back, or made a little bit of a profit. I did not listen to myself, which is bruh. So maybe I'm doing the exact same thing today. Or maybe I'm not. I don't know. Grant, how'd you do last week?
Yeah. We don't know what Mick's doing, because Mick doesn't know what Mick's doing.
No.
So as far as like picks went, 1 for 3. I missed out on 2 of them, but one of the ones that did cash was the overtime bet. It was Dallas versus Arizona. I ended up, I think, adding $30-ish, $35 to my account. So I'll take it. It's better than a loss, but yep. I'm hoping for bigger and better things today. How many wagers do you have lined up?
I have 2.
All right, I got 3. I'll take the lead. As mentioned, the New York Islanders are on the road, taking on the San Jose Sharks. I don't like the spot for them. Like I said, not extended. Like they're on their Western Conference road trip, playing in California. Goals against has been an issue for them, and I think that San Jose at plus 158.5 at home is tremendous value. So $30 to win $46.50.
Awesome, solid. Yeah, there was, like now that I've looked a little bit more, there are some, I don't know, there's a couple lines that definitely like stand out, and I'm like, oh, I like that. I don't know if I'm going to make them official plays. I'm going to stick with my strategy, see if it pays off tonight. I'm basically emotionally hedging as well as just hedging against my own emotions. Emotional hedge? Double hedging here. So my first play is, I don't hate the Senators. Leafs played last night. It was St. Patrick's Day. Did the boys have some green beers afterwards? Probably. Right? Did Brady Tkachuk drink a flat of beer by himself, alone in his dirty basement? Absolutely he did. You know what he does, though? He does that every single day. You can't stop a Tkachuk from having a good time. So I don't mind the Senators. Plus 105 or plus 125. Kind of feel like that's like a small line. It's even changed. I think it's even shifted. So it's plus 115 right now. Let's take that. Let's put some money on the Senators. I don't know. Kind of sounds like books also think it's going to be closer. So we'll do that. So we'll go Senators plus 115. I lost a lot of momentum there. Grant, what's your second play?
All right. I'm going to pick up all that lost momentum because I think that this is, well, I don't think. This is one of my favorite spots to back as an overtime wager, and that is second night of a back-to-back divisional matchup with travel. I was like, man, this just screams overtime to me. And you know what doesn't scream overtime? The betting price, because it's plus 390. I strongly debated just putting all $100 on this game going to overtime. It's also a Hockey Night in Canada game, which shifted me in the right direction. Nevertheless, $30 to win 117 at plus 390.
Solid. My other play, I'm going to stay right in that game. If the Leafs win, I think at this point, the level that they're playing, if they're going to pick up a win, it's going to be my multiple goals. They're coming at you with 3-4 lines potentially. They're playing a very hard physical hitting game. They might just beat you up, war of attrition. An empty net goal is definitely in the, as soon as you pull your goalie against these guys can shoot from anywhere on the puck. They can move, they're fast, they're physical. I don't hate the Leafs winning by multiple goals, plus 155. I'm going to put $50 on both of those. So then I get 107 return, so I make $7 profit. Not the best. And when the Leafs win, I get a $27 profit. So plus my $100 investment from today. And that should give me enough to be in theory completely wrong for the rest of the season and still end up with some plus money. So I'm kind of like, this is like a strategy to make some big plays here down the line.
Oh, smart. I like it. I was just trying to think of this. I think no matter what happens, one of us is going to win a bet on this game now.
Yeah, because I have... So if the Leafs win by a goal, I lose. So in theory, if they win in overtime or a shootout, do the Leafs have 2 shootouts? I think they've only had 2 all season. Did they pick up a third one this week?
So basically, okay. So if the Leafs watch the Leafs win, we've tempted the universe too much with our plays. The Leafs are going to win 3-2 in regulation, and we're both going to hate our lives.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the outcome that gets us nowhere, except my emotions. Then I'm happy. So.
All right, I got one last play plus my parlay. Another game. I know I said that this was a 4-point game earlier in the podcast. I don't actually believe that. I think the Winnipeg Jets versus Nashville Predators is going to be an overtime game. I think points being more than outcome right now for the Jets, as silly as that sounds, but especially against a team, you're playing Nashville on the road, team that's creeping up on you in the standings. The goal is to just not lose. It's not to win. It's just don't lose. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of mentality shifted me towards this game kind of makes sense as an overtime bet. Plus 330, $30 to win 104? 109? 109 it looks like. You parlay that pick with the Sens Leafs and overtime and San Jose Sharks to outright win. $10 left would yield a $537 payday.
Solid. How many of those have you hit this year? 2?
These 3 game parlays? I would a few, 2 or 3 at least.
2 or 3? And you're up, what, $1,000?
Yeah, 12-ish, 12
So based on this strategy, you've been right 3 times in, I think this is show 18 or something. So 3 and 18, so you're only hitting, what's that, 12% for a 10x return? It's not bad.
No, it is not bad. Now this is the gambling life. It's a grind.
That's it. That's how we go. So, with that, that's everything. That's everything you need to know to be caught up in hockey, ready for tonight. We even almost lived my dream show, my Sunday morning hangover show. I don't have the energy. I don't have, like, the attention for it, but I would love to just come and just, like, be sad and just depressed when your team loses, your bet loses the night before, and just sit here and be like, I don't know what the content is, other than just, like, instead of me walking sadly around the park listening to, like, country music, being sad, I can, like, be sad on the internet.
Yeah, you gotta share that sadness, but the image of you with both hands in your pockets, sulking and kicking rocks, listening to sad country music, that kind of makes me happy. I hope that one day I drive by and I see you just kicking rocks in a field, all pouty. That would make my day. But Canada Puck Podcast would not be the Canada Puck Podcast without our Babe of the Week. We are going to a national treasure, Emily Clark. This is EMCLARK.26, Olympic and world champion with Team Canada, Sask proud. You go about 6 pictures down, you get a beautiful view for the NHL All-Star Game. Emily Clark is a stone-cold fox, and well before today should have been our Babe of the Week, but here she is. Better late than never. Emily Clark, you are the Canada Puck Podcast Babe of the Week. Schwing.
Always beautiful finds of beautiful girls who love the great sport of hockey. Schwing. There you go. So look at that. Just over an hour, even though we went on a diatribe about me trying to make me and Grant feel better, that eventually a cup might come. And even an appearance, I guess, at this point, should not be frowned upon in the Stanley Cup Finals. There you go. Look at that. So, ready for the week that is? We must be close to the end of the season, right? Like, what do we have, like 2 shows left?
So, the NHL regular season extends till, it's a long time. It's April 15th, I think. It's partway through April, I think, is halfway through April. So we got like a month left. So maybe 3 or 4 shows.
3 regular season shows, a playoff preview, and then we're basically into the postseason. So.
Oh, hell yeah. And then we'll probably be done in the first round because that's just the way the NHL works these days.
Because that's, like, we don't want content and people following and paying attention. We want people just tuning in for, like, deciding games of the Stanley Cup Finals after the first round of the playoffs. Yeah, it sounds like a good model that you have there, NHL.
we need more southern states competing longer in the postseason.
Oh, man, I really need to not pay attention to another Tampa Bay Colorado series until, like, the final 10 minutes of Game 6 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Awesome. So that's, I think that's everything. See you guys next week. And we say party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.